So here's a tribute to Advocatus Diaboli. And I know y'all probably tired of hearing me say that name. It's another language for devil's advocate, because the name of his WordPress blog is Playing the Devil's Advocate. And one of his most popular and most commented on topics of all time since 2009 is an alternative explanation for why women choose bad boys. All right. There's a lot of talk, and there's been a lot of talk on YouTube, on the internet, black YouTube, manosphere, black manosphere for years, even on YouTube, way back in 2008 when Sergeant Willie P first started making topics. You know, there's the conversation about why women choosing so-called thugs or bad boys is becoming very mainstream, and it gets on your nerves. It really does, you know. And a lot of people don't understand why. And I just got done listening to an older video from Alpha Male Strategies about, I think it was called Why Ray Ray and Pookie is Fucking Your Girl, and they're fucking her for ways that you might not think, okay? And he basically broke it down in terms of, well, street guys, some of these guys have followed, some of them didn't, and they know that they had a head start in life because they were street smart, and they focused on street smarts rather than book smarts. It's always good to have both, but you know, street smart is always better. There's a lot of people who are book smart and they get taken advantage of. Any idiot can regurgitate something from a damn book, like a preacher or a teacher, okay? Anybody can do that, and then they get taken advantage of and walked all over. So there's a lot of, you know, mainstream discussions, and it's, you know, it's like fake pseudo intellectualism. It's like an intellectual way of, you know, men or nerds to sit up and say that they're better than thugs, or I'm better than those thugs, I'm better than those park apes, I'm better than them, and the reason why the black community is fucked up is because of women choosing so-called thugs or whatever, you know. And the same thing happened throughout history, where history was much less civilized, and it was normal for men to fight and kill each other and beat each other to a pulp and tear down empires over pussy, mediocre pussy at that. All right. So a lot of guys believe, you know, these educated lames or classic men, whatever they call them, Negro peons, whatever, nerds, nigga nerds, whatever. And they love to sit up and say, oh, well, women should choose me because I'm so sweet, because it's all about nation building, and you know, if women stop choosing those guys over there and start choosing guys like me, then, oh, guess what? We can start nation building, and we can pass on our superior genetics and create some type of nuclear family structure. Well, consider something. We're human, and humans are not meant to spend our whole entire lives just building and reproducing and trying to fix society's problems like we're a bunch of animals or insects or anything like that. But let's take a look at how life would be if that was true. Especially in today's grand scheme of things. For every child you bring into the world, think about how much money it costs. It's going to cost you about $250,000 and maybe $500,000 for every child you bring into the world to supply it with college, toys, food, clothes, shelter, diapers, and so on and so forth. All right. And a lot of people, men and women alike, even though you do have some women who are choosing single motherhood, not just in the black community, but in the white community, Southeast Asian community, Latin American community, where single mother is more of a choice. Now, yeah, you do have some single mothers who are choosing single motherhood, but you have others out here who are single mothers because they are victims of circumstance. If you took monogamy and marriage out of the equation, if people decide, look, screw marriage, or if marriage somehow became banned, women are going to always have what's called a maternal instinct. You're going to have some women who are always going to want to have a baby. You're going to have some men out here, not all, but some men who still want to be a father, who still want to have kids, whether you take marriage out of the equation or not. Well, I mean, even with that aside, even with that said, a lot of people are becoming aware of the fact that having kids can take a negative toll on your freedom and your personal life. And a lot of people are just not interested in having them anymore. I'm not going to get into details about low fertility rates in white and Asian communities, and some people, white nationalists, want to sit up and blame that on white women choosing BBC and Asian women who would rather give it up to tourists or white guys or black guys. Okay, think about all the money and the resources and stress and sacrifice it takes to bring a child into the world. All right, some people are not interested in having them, and people don't even stay together for the sake of kids, which further proves the point that we're human. We're not a bunch of insects and animals who are supposed to spend our entire lives building and leading and reproducing or whatever. The nice guy or the provider strategy only worked for the same exact reason why marriage lasted for a long time. It only lasted for as long as it did because of a person's inability to back out of the marriage, especially women and black men too. All right, so that's the only reason why that lasts for as long as it did. And now that women have more control over their own personal lives, they just don't need a provider type anymore. Unless they want to have a family, then that's totally different. There's a difference between alpha and beta. I'm sure a lot of you already know that. And yes, women do want both, but the reality is that it's almost humanly impossible for people to have to actually have the best at everything, to have the best of both worlds, which explains why females choose athletes and entertainers and actors and such, because they have a reputation for being good with ladies, and then they also have money. But how many men like that make up the male population? 1%, maybe 5%, and that's it. But then you have the discussion of a woman or a group of women who would rather get with DJs, abusive bartenders, or like bouncers at strip clubs, or a guy who's sitting at home. He might be on welfare. He might be in his 30s, 40s. He still got a living arrangement. He only makes $20,000-$30,000 a year, and that's it. Or he could be a mid-level or low-level dope deal or whatever. And I'm not advocating anyone going out selling drugs or anything of that nature. The war on drugs is a war on black men, and that shit is no joke out here. So you got to ask yourself, why would a woman choose a guy like that, or a Ray Ray and Pookie type, instead of getting with a guy who might make $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year? Because, as Advocatus Diaboli said, and I'll quote, "Willing slaves inspire disgust and contempt, not lust or passion." Now think about this. There was even a book written called Going Postal, written by a guy named Mark Ames, and he says that, in so many other words that the more cynical of us would know, that the plantation just became more upscale, except you cannot physically brutalize anyone no more like you used to in ancient civilizations. All right, nowadays it's more mental, it's more psychological. And the same mind games and fear tactics that worked during slavery, it still happens in the public school system and on jobs, which could be one of the very many reasons why you do have so many school shootings and workplace shootings. All right, people snap and then they kill people for disrespecting them, and then some of them, they end up killing themselves. So I'm saying all that to say, even, you got to understand, you got to remember how this country was built. This country was built on the backs of slavery. All right. And even in today's generation, a lot of society's institutions are still slavery based. Religion, jobs, the public school system, and monogamy, the marriage contract. And then you add the government and their interference in it. And it just makes people not want to be bothered. So, I mean, the more cynical and the more pragmatic of us, there's the direct collaboration between a person who's willing to degrade and debase himself. Some of y'all call it cooning or shucking and jiving or whatever, just so that they can have a high-paying job. All right. I remember about 5 years ago, I wanted to be a fireman, and I applied to be a firefighter, but they wasn't hiring. But I still wanted to know what the job duties entail. And well, first off, I know this one guy, brother, who was a firefighter. I met him 5 years ago, and I thought, oh man, this dude, he got it made. He says yes and no. He says he enjoyed the job and it made a lot of money, but he saw a lot of stuff that he did not want to see. And he also told me, him and this other guy who is an author, by the way, they both told me that firefighters and the police do not get along. And you know why that is? Because they be fighting over pussy. Firefighters are seen as heroes. Police officers are seen as assholes. Even women take a look at a guy who's a firefighter and she be like, oh, he's a hunk, he looks good, and he got a hard body on him. Whereas a lot of females look at a lot of police officers, unless you're talking about racist white soccer moms out here who create GoFundMe accounts for white racist cops for killing niggas or for beating and raping black women. And yes, the Oklahoma police officer who's in prison, who raped all them black women, believe it or not, there were white soccer moms who created GoFundMe accounts for this bastard also. But essentially, cops are seen as assholes and firefighters are seen as heroes. So I've heard many stories about how firefighters be banging some of these cops' wives, and the cops be losing it, going inside the fire department, and they get into fights at bars. The police versus firefighters. Firefighters versus cops. They don't get along because they fight over pussy. Also, I applied to be a fireman, but they weren't hiring, and I still want to read the job description. And they make you undergo psychological evaluation to see if you're mentally competent to be a firefighter. Notice how they don't do that for the police. They don't make soon-to-be or wannabe police officers undergo psychic evaluation. You can't even be a police officer if you have a high IQ. They find out you have a high IQ, you're banned. And it's funny how conservatives love to sit up and say that, oh, well, black people are violent because they have low IQ. You know, they're so obsessed with all this IQ bullshit, but these same stupid conservative bastards back the police. And nobody makes that excuse for why cops are so fucking violent, why they get away with killing people, beating and raping women and killing niggas left and right. And I'm saying all that to say that there, you know, a lot of jobs and careers, they want to hire people who kiss ass and turn a blind eye to injustice instead of hiring somebody who's going to really do the damn job. How many people want to be teachers and doctors and lawyers and police officers for the money versus people who just want to disrespect people and shit on people who are vulnerable and who can't fight back and then act as if they're worth more than what the fuck they are? All right? Having a servile, obedient existence can easily rub off into your personal life. It's just like anger. You spend all your life angry, and even if you take yourself too serious, it can have a negative effect on your, not just your sex life, but you can have heart palpitations, anxiety, weight gain, and the same thing can be said about a servile, obedient existence. And this is especially true in the black community. There's too many black people who enjoy playing the role of house niggas or educated lames or whatever, just so that they can get meager and mediocre rewards from whitey. I don't care if you're doctors, lawyers, architects, teachers. A lot of these jobs require a whole lot of sacrifice, sleepless nights, long probationary periods. They put you on probation before you can get benefits, and even on those jobs, once you get in the door, you're being monitored. What are the chances of and I'm just gonna put it this way, and if you're a black man, you should know better. And I know what I'm going to say is going to piss a lot of people off, but what are the chances of a man, especially a black man who knows his damn history, even a young black teenage boy who knows his history, who got balls and self-respect, and who got agency, i.e. a mind of his own, and he's a social butterfly or even a sexual butterfly? What are the chances of a person like that is going to end up in a high-paying job, or any job, having people yell at him, scream at him, nitpick him, monitor him, giving him orders, tell him to do something because they told him to? When Birth of a Nation came on Roku, and I watched it at home, I made a Facebook status. on my personal Facebook page. And Birth of a Nation was a very good movie. You get to see why certain racist white people did not want that movie to be shown. And I made a Facebook status saying I was watching. A brother commented, a guy who's on my Facebook friends list, he was like, man, that's a good ass movie. Watching that movie and knowing that history, it makes it hard for you to get up off your ass and have to work for Whitey. I said, exactly. And the same thing could be said about young black boys going to high school or taking orders from anyone, period. Which is one reason why you do have a lot of young black boys dropping out of high school left and right. Again, I'm going to ask you again, what are the chances of a black man or even a young black teenage boy who knows his history is going to end up in a high-paid job or on the honor roll, allowing people to take, or give him orders and come at him with drama and bullshit and attitude, and he's sitting back in a classroom looking dull and slow and allowing people to fill up his head with a bunch of useless facts, and the system chew him up, spit him out there in the street, and make his ass vulnerable for people to run a game on. So at the end of the day, whatever you call them, educated lames, classic men, nigga nerds, whatever, good boy didn't do nothing, whatever you want to call them, conservatives, whatever, they have more in common with slaves or dogs or bitches or fucking teddy bears than human beings. It's like a dog. Okay, sure, a dog can be a loyal companion, but that's all they are. They're dogs. It's funny how women like to sit up here and say that men are dogs because they're not loyal, but dogs are actually loyal. All right. Sure, they can be loyal companions. Sure, they got money. And they can go out and buy a whole bunch of bullshit that they don't need just to keep businesses and civilization going. Sure, he can jump through a whole bunch of hula hoops and he can, learn brand new tricks for mediocre treats and mediocre rewards. But at the end of the day, that's all he is a dog. He's a slave. At the risk of me ruffling some feathers, he's a bitch. He ain't got no control over his life. As far as females go, of course, some females are not going to say that, because if they say that, then they're going to run the beta males away from them. They ain't going to have nobody to really trick off of them and give them all that attention on social media that they want. And some females, they're like kids mentally. They know things in the back of their mind, but they just cannot put their finger on it. They might not explicitly say that for a lot of reasons, because, they might not be able to put it into his perspective, or because they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. But again, people like that, they have no control over their life. If you compare that to a bad boy, he doesn't have to be a thug or who's a murderer, who's a killer, who's in and out of jail because he beat up the cops or because he's selling dope or whatever, because he beat someone to a pulp for looking at him funny. He could be a womanizer, pipe layer, whatever you want to call them. They got balls. They have agency. They have their lives are full of drama and excitement and adventure. They do their own thinking for themselves. They don't let society do their thinking for them. They don't let people tell them what to do. Like my grandmother used to always say, you can't argue with an asshole. You'll fuck around and you'll send yourself to an early grave. Because they're going to do what the fuck they want, or they might let you think they're going to do something, but, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if you go through that nigga phone and you see a whole bunch of shit that you don't want to see. So, of course, we have alpha and beta, but my mother even told me, growing up, she says, you have three people in life. You have people who do what they got to do. You have people who do what they want to do, and then you have people who just do what they're told. Most people do what they're told, and that's why you see those types who are in honors classes or on the honor roll, or they have a safe job and they don't want to rock the boat. You have people who do what they have to do because they're victims of circumstance, or they might work at a blue collar job that they don't like, but guess what? They got a family and they cannot leave a job based on a whim, or because somebody disrespected them and chewed them out and embarrassed them in public, because they got to think about their family. Then you have people who just do what they want and be like, screw it. I don't care if I do have to spend like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days in jail for knocking someone out, for disrespecting me, and for violating my privacy. Okay? You don't have a lot of people in life who do what they want to do. Most people do what they told. You have another large segment of people who just do what they have to do. All right? So, of course, sex plays a very important factor of why Women will rather get with a thug or a bad boy instead of a nerd or a classic Negro peon educated lame, all right? And it's not a black woman thing. All women, I've heard this from all females. I've even heard overseas European white women who like black men. They believe, oh, you can't get fucked good by a nice guy. And again, we're human. We're not robots. We're not insects or animals who are supposed to spend our whole entire lives working, building and leading and reproducing, working 12 fucking hours a day, hit the gym, and then you come home and then you lay pipe. It's not possible for any one group of people to be the best at everything. Plus the fact that there's only so many hours in one day. All right. So, and what this also proves is that, yes, again, sex is important. That's a very important part of a relationship. Once you remove that out of the equation, a woman's role as being a possible mother or even a possible daughter or girlfriend or a wife is useless. I told this to one group of guys. They said, I'm crazy as hell for saying that. I'm like, well, y'all just ain't using y'all brain. Well, the more extreme case is when you have what's called, some people call hybristophilia, when you have females sending love letters to death row inmates or Charles Manson, or a female prison guard who gets pregnant by a couple prison inmates. That's something totally different, you know, but you know, just because a guy's a bad boy does not necessarily mean that he's a killer or a murderer or serial killer or a rapist, that he's on death row, you know. And sometimes it's not even the bad. Sometimes it's just you being a rebel. You being a rebel, or society say that you're an asshole, or you're rebellious, or you must come from a single parent household, or you didn't have no father in the house, you just did what you wanted, or whatever. All, you know, and when you have so many people hating on you like that, it also proves that you're stronger than anybody else's rules. Whatever type of rules or regulations society tries to create for you, you just do what you want to do. And it proves that you're stronger than that. Especially if you're a black guy in America who grew up in an impoverished neighborhood and nobody ever gave you anything, you don't have nothing to lose. And it's not like if you did play by their rules, they would have gave you something anyway. Again, why are you stupid enough to sit around and try to play nice, you know, for people, or trying to prove a point to people who want to see you fail, or people who don't matter and who don't mean shit, and people who want to see you fail anyway. I'm going out of the country in about a week from now, and it's possible that I'm gonna make another topic before then, but I just wanted to get this out of my head. And this is a tribute to Devil's Advocate, and I just want to elaborate on what he said. It was one of his like greatest 50, 100, 500, because this guy wrote so many damn topics on his WordPress blog since 2009, and this is a tribute and a shout out to him. And I want to elaborate on what he said. That's my topic, and I'll holler at y'all in a minute.